maybe we could start this by actually going around. How many of us are there? I'm trying to
We've got 11 so far.
11.
Yeah.
So maybe each of us could just kind of give a quick. Your name is clear, but how long you've been with the club, and if you've been a ride leader, for how long? Just so I get a feel for who the audience is. I'll start. I've been with the club since, I don't remember, 2015, I think, maybe 14. Have been leading since I started, essentially, and some basic things I've been into, but and then have been doing this ride coordinator or VP of rec role now my second year. So next, I'll point and next.
I've been with the club since it started in 2007, and I've been a ride leader probably since 2011-ish.
Mark?
Yeah, so with the club, returned to the club around that 2015, I think, or so. Have not been a ride leader. I did the ride leader training last year and led one ride with one individual. So technically I'm a ride leader, but I have no experience.
Oh yeah, I'll just add, the other thing I'm looking for is whether you attended it last year, just because I know what was presented last year.
I did.
Or if you've attended the OCA ride leader.
Both.
Okay. Brody? I'm just going to.
Yeah. I'm kind of on the same boat as Mark. I probably joined 3 or 4 years ago now. Intended to be a ride leader last year for the first year, and obviously, like Mark, it changed. And hopefully, I'll help Matt out and leading some of the mountain bike side, and then maybe be a ride leader on some of the nukes if I can this year. So.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, I've been with the club for a few years now. I can't remember which year. And I've been a ride leader since about day 3 of that. So.
Okay, Bruno.
Yeah, I've been with the club for, again, a while, maybe 2011, yeah, hello. And ride leader, just a couple of years. I took both that training for ride leading from the OCA just a couple of weeks ago, a month ago.
Michael?
Hi, Kate. So Ange, if I'm right, it's about 5 years, ride leading for 4. Been at the ride leader training one that Ange did for a couple of years. Last year, I attended your session, did the OCA session about a month ago with a bunch of these folks as well, too. There you go.
Hey, David.
I joined late in the fall of 2019. I was a ride leader last year for social rides but I did them all with Bruno. So we were co-ride leaders, and I did the ride leader training with you, Kate, last year, and also the OCA training a month ago.
Jody?
Been with the club for 7-ish years. I have no concept of time anymore. I think I started leading rides 6-ish years ago. Did the ride leader training last year, led one ride, and then didn't do any other club rides last year. Have not done the OCA training this year.
And Scott.
Hi, I've been a club member for, I guess this will be my 4th year. Last year hardly counts. I think I went on 1 club ride last year. Have not done the ride leader training with this club before. I have led rides with other clubs before, but just thought I'd, drop in, go through the ride leader training just to, say I did, I guess. Seems like there's a need for people who are willing to do it if, that opportunity comes around. So yeah, just thought I'd join in.
Well, glad to have you. And Rodney.
Yes, I've been here since 2017 and been leading rides for about a couple of years now. And OCA training, it's on my list of things to do. So.
Okay, that's all that I have visible. So I don't know if there's any other members listening in that I don't see. I'll get on this presentation then. the main reason I wanted to kind of cover that is that this year's ride leader training is really a refresher. I'll mostly cover the same things that are covered in both the OCA ride leader and what we've done in previous years. And I wanted just the context of where everyone's coming from. It sounds like Scott's the only one who hasn't been through the ride leader training with our club. So I'll still highlight some of these things. So it's got the same format as previous years. I have tried to mark a few things that are deviations from previous years with a little star. Those mainly relate with just how we are going to manage the rides this year. They'll go through the ride leader role, the ride management process, is where most of the changes come in, and then we'll get into the guidelines in terms of how to lead a ride and open discussion actually throughout. We'll try to keep this flowing. So the role of the ride leader, I'm just jumping straight to the point, promote the club's mission, know the risk management plan. So everybody should know that anyways, if you've signed off on the risk management plan when you signed up to be a member of the club, as well as the concussion policy. But the difference here is that you need to be able to, apply it. I guess everybody should be able to apply it, but guide people on the ride in applying it. And then also as part of signing up for the ride is understanding the restrictions placed on us by COVID-19 restrictions. So whatever they are at the time. There's a bit of confusion even within the board in terms of what our restrictions are right now. You saw the notice yesterday or today that we're not sure exactly when we're going to start rides. But the general principle whenever they do start will be the same, and I'll go through some of the brief ones later in the presentation. The key thing is, as a ride leader, you've got on any specific ride, you have the final decision on all matters related to all of the above. So promoting the club's mission, which includes, I'll get into, but includes safety and encouragement. Sorry, I'm having control issues with my setup.
Oh.
I've got to move this down because it is in the way. Oh, and never mind. Okay. This is the mission statement off of the website. Not going to go into it in detail, but you can all read it. Emphasis on safety and inclusion and fostering the group riding etiquette. The risk management plan, is on the website as well. So I expect anybody leading a ride to have reviewed it perhaps in more detail than you would have as a club member, but all club members are supposed to review it. These are some of the the key points I've pulled out here. The goal of using lesser roads where possible comes into play when we're setting up a ride. And so if you find that you're on a route that's been branded a Darkhorse route and you don't think a road is safe based on its use, let us know and we'll change the route, or even propose a route alteration and we'll change it. Lightning sighted ride canceled is part of the weather policy. I'll summarize that a bit more later, but that's just a clear, if there's lightning, you don't go. If there's lightning, if you're on a ride and the lightning occurs, you make plans to return home or take shelter as necessary. The group size, so in normal circumstances, we're talking about 12 to 6, or around 12, maximum 16, 6 to 12 is kind of an ideal size, but with the COVID restrictions of 2 meter spacing limitations, we're really emphasizing that 6 as a maximum is really kind of the ideal maximum. As things progress, and if we start to, if group gathering sizes are increased, we may allow a group to be up to whatever the gathering limit is, but we expect that to have multiple ride leaders so that you can break into groups of 6 or less. This we'll get into comes to do with just the size of the group on the road with the spacing requirements. So these other items are items that, you know, they're not specific to a role to the ride leader per se. They're everybody in the club, everybody on the ride needs to be following these. But as a ride leader, you can remind members of these responsibilities, such as, well, being an OCN member, that's something that'll come into play at the beginning of a ride. Helmets are necessary, earbuds can't be worn, TT bars shouldn't even be on a bike. Um, the ride's not, if you're starting a ride within a half hour of sunset or sunrise, lights need to be on. Or if there's any chance that the ride might go into that kind of time frame, you should have lights on the bike. I'm gonna get into some of the other stuff later. The concussion policy, again, was something that needs to be signed off when you're joining. What is it we want to say here? What is it we want to raise here? Ange, do you have any?
If anyone either stops, because you could get a concussion just from stopping hard, your brain can like hit the inside of your skull. So if anyone is not able to answer questions clearly, if they did fall and have clearly hit their head, anything that involves the head, memory, any of that stuff. If you suspect anything, you have to tell that person that their ride is done, and either they can arrange a way home or you can call an Uber and we will reimburse for if you book it for them or however. But we'll pay for that ride to get them home safely or get them to a hospital. If it's really severe, obviously call 911. Don't mess with them. But
I will add one thing, Ange, and Kate, that the impetus is on us to make that call. Even if they're resistant, I think we have to be willing to make that call, even if it's a tough one.
Yes, and they might say, I'm fine. But if you saw them hit their head, you make the judgment call that, nope, sorry, your ride's done.
And then I'll add that it doesn't have to do with whether Ange brought this up, they may not have hit their head, they may have had a really bad whiplash. But you don't have to look at the helmet and see, oh, there's a dent, you hit your head. You can not have any apparent damage on the helmet and still have damaged their head. So the whiplash one is hard to call, but seeing someone hit their head or have a bad crash
there are a bunch of symptoms too, which I don't think that they're part of our concussion document, and I should add them to it. I've got sort of a chart of symptoms that I'll put in there.
The key there is that we're not medical professionals, so we don't need to make a call on symptoms. It's just if you've had any kind of suspicion that there was any kind of head injury, you have the authority to say you have to go home. You can't ride your bike home. You can't continue on this.
And sometimes someone being irritable, saying, no, I'm fine. Irritability is not a cause.
Symptom or sign.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is usually just kind of sit with them for a bit. Usually sitting with them, it's not going to make them better. It's just going to make them get over this kind of immediate reaction of I'm fine. And so we'll move on from there. So I've highlighted here, there's a star on this thing called the Cycle Club app. We'll get into that a bit more later. But it's just as a way to report on the incident. It is an app we're proposing to use where you can actually create the incident form from the app, or at least enough to send to the board that we can send it on. So the progressive return to cycling, this hasn't changed since last year. Most of it, they keep updating new revisions to it, and the link is provided in this spreadsheet, in this presentation. But all the key points have remained the same, which is that you need to follow the Ontario's restrictions, whatever they are at the time. Keep a 2-meter distance, and this is probably going to continue for the good part of the summer. From anybody outside of your household. Ride participation is going to be capped to whatever number is allowable or reasonable, and that number is going to include ride leaders. Participants must be symptom-free, not have been exposed to COVID. These are all very standard. I think everybody's used to them by now. a few different ones are the ride leaders and PP8. And I don't, if we supplied ride leaders with these last year and we have more. So if you need a top-up kit even, or if you didn't get one last year and are leading rides, it is a simple PPE kit with gloves, with a few bandages, hand sanitizer. And the nice thing is that it's a nice compact size hand sanitizer that will fit in a back pocket.
Yes.
Yes.
Still have
and
my
the
kit
idea
from
with
last year.
The idea with the gloves and is that most people shouldn't be coming anywhere near each other, but you don't know what will deal with the potential helping. So even if you're helping someone else on their bike, you might want to put them on for that, not just for first aid. Ride leaders must be pre-registered, so we're changing the process a bit this year, but it's still the same requirement that we need to be able to track everybody who's coming on the ride. And then you have the authority. If someone looks like they're sick, if they're claiming not to be, you can kind of say this is not okay. You need to go home. Okay, so that's a very brief summary of the role of the ride leader. I'm going to get into more of the details of what actually happens on a ride, but that just summarizes what we're here for. Does anybody want to have questions now, or? Yeah, Mark, you're on mute. Mark, you're on mute.
There, that's better. Sorry. Just a question regarding COVID restrictions. It clearly states that the only people that can work on a mechanical are the rider and the ride leader, right? And probably not at the same time, socially distances and all that stuff, and that's fine. I understand that, but I don't understand the point of only a ride leader could be the only other person to work on a bike. Why, if they're not perhaps the best qualified to fix something, if they step back and someone other were to work on the bike, and sanitize their hands before and after and all that stuff, follow the same protocol, why does it have to be only the ride leader?
The goal is that there's only 2 sets of hands touching the bike. So the rider and one other person, which they say ride leader, but it could be if there's someone who's on your ride, they could be the one, but everyone else shouldn't be huddled around watching what's happening. They should all step back. So it's only.
That's a good point that we should probably reach out to the OCA and say, can you clarify this? Because it doesn't make sense with our group where ride leader might not be the most.
Yeah, the way it's written, it doesn't make sense. What Ange said makes sense. So, okay, that's fine. We follow a sensible approach.
Our document to what we feel is right, but I'll also check with the OCA.
Okay, thank you.
I had a flat situation last year when I was riding with Dornellas, and basically the ride leader helped the fellow that had the flat, and the rest of us, we all just we spaced ourselves, give or take, 5 meters apart or whatever it was up the road, so that we were all sort of sitting there waiting, just to cover off the rider and who it was working on it as well too. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So hope that helps.
Yeah, in some cases it won't be the ride leader who is most capable of helping. The idea, I also thought of the hand sanitizer potentially for others to use. Like you can pass that on if you decide that it's somebody else that needs to be touching somebody else's equipment. So the registration process. So it's similar to last year, but a little bit different. So we're trying out this Cycle Club app. We're going to start with, as we know, all riders, like I said, need to be registered for all the rides. All rides need to register. This is something the OCA brought up in their presentation. It's like, this is something the board takes care of, but it is good for ride leaders to know about, that we register every ride. But the registration is pretty simple. Like, it's the start time, it's the duration, it's the type of activity. And it's an estimated start. So if we say we're starting at 7, but you start at 7:20 because everybody's late, that's still part of the insured ride. Once we get approval from the OCA, I fill out this spreadsheet. I'm going to open the spreadsheet and hopefully you'll all be able to see it. This is still in work in terms of what rides will actually be happening. But this year, last year, this is where every member came and signed up. But this year, we're going to have this just back to kind of old school, where it's just where the ride leaders will be coming to sign up. Oops, that didn't work.
While we're finding the document, I just wanted to say too, the Cycle Club app, we have purchased it and we've purchased space for members, but none of you have, other than the board, have been added yet because we're just getting in the process of populating the rides in there. So before everyone emails me to say, I can't access it, I will announce once it's live, and and you'll probably get a notification that I've added you, I would imagine, but I don't fully know yet.
So now can you see the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so this should look familiar. This is very similar to what was last year, except for I don't have areas for members to sign up. So I think I still have this populated with last year's ride leaders. And I've started to populate with the ride. So this is all similar. You'll have control over adding your name and over weather conditions. So here, anybody can come in and change the weather conditions. This is still linked directly to our calendar. So if I go and say I'm going to lead this ride in a few minutes, it will pop up on our calendar as being a ride that is going. So I'm not going to leave this for too long. I'll cancel it at the end of this ride. That's where you will need to come to see what rides we have planned and what you want to sign up for. Once this appears on the calendar,
I recognize some of those guys.
you recognize some of those bums. See if that worked. Hey, look at that. I'm leading a ride on in May. It'll appear there. And it includes a link to tell people that if you want to do this ride, you need to sign up on the app. But it won't be on the app yet because that's something that's not automated, and it's something the board's going to take on in terms of adding rides from the ride board, from the Google Calendar to our COVID link. Oh, look, I need to fix that link. Well, let's go back. So once you've signed up, that spreadsheet is going to be used like it used to be used for tracking who's led what rides and summaries of where we need ride leaders. Then the Cycle Club app it'll go here. I don't know how to demonstrate it, but essentially we'll create an event. And then within the event, I wonder if I can. Maybe I can log in. I actually have two clubs listed. I have a test club, which I haven't done much with, and the Darkhorse club. So this is in the Darkhorse club as a test event. So you'd see something like this for an event. I've registered for this, but I'm not listed as the ride leader. The ride leader will be listed as a ride host. And as a ride host, you'll be able to send messages, and you'll also be able to cancel the ride. I can probably cancel it because I'm in the bin, but you go and cancel. The main thing is you'll be able to come in and take attendance. No, yes, no, there it is.
And that's a huge requirement right now, especially with COVID, is the contact tracing. So we have to have ride leaders take attendance at the start of the ride.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's an app that can be done on the phone and you can take attendance. You can also cancel the ride for whatever reason at the end of a ride, and it only shows up after the duration of the ride's completed. So we're going to try and make the ride durations actually short in terms of time. So that if you get back, you can say, okay, this ride, you can click that the ride's completed and you can add notes. And you can also have a discussion within the event itself. So if you are running late, hopefully not, you can send a message that it'll just be for the event. So only people who care about it will get it rather than everybody in the club if you're sending an email. We will have the link to the route listed there. So this test event I put has a link to the ride with GPS one and just as well as the start location. Hopefully a little bit of text with the description.
Yeah, the discussion part is going to be really great because it'll be contained within that ride. So you'll be able to get specific instructions about that ride if need be, which will be, a bonus.
And
I
if the ride
believe as a
because of
go
weather
ahead.
or anything, if the ride needs to cancel because of the weather's bad or anything, it'll go to everyone on that ride.
Yeah, and I believe as a host you can change. I gotta have yet to figure out what controls the host have, but I think you can change things about the ride, whether it be the route, and if you're going to change the route, we'd ask that you contact us and make sure it's an approved route. But definitely canceling it is part of the thing the role of the ride host can do. If you're going to cancel a ride, you can cancel it here. If you can also cancel it within the spreadsheet, that would be good because then it'll update the ride board. We'll try to keep on top of that as well if any rides are canceled on the app. But I know sometimes it'll be last minute, but if you cancel in both places, that would be really optimal. Right. So this summarize what I was just saying. The event will be created by the board. They added to the cycle app, and then via the cycle app, you can communicate. Members will be able to sign up through that. So it's only once it's there they'll be able to sign up. If you have to back out from reading a ride, if it's before the ride, please update the spreadsheet because then the ride board will be updated as no events, and we'll reach out to other ride leaders to read it. Also reach out to your members who have signed up for the ride, because if there is no ride leader, that ride cannot officially go on. So maybe they would step up to lead the ride, someone within that group.
And more than one ride leader per ride is always the dream.
Yeah, so if you've signed, so a process we haven't completely figured out is adding other ride leaders. I'm trying to find out from the Cycle app whether that's something a host can do. So if you've signed up for a ride, whether you can add other ride leaders.
I think they're just added as hosts as well, which makes them ride leaders.
I'm wondering whether a host can add a host.
Oh, yeah, we might have to, the board might have to do it.
Okay. But it should be optimal for communicating within all members on the ride.
So
the number of riders will, sorry.
Yeah, so with this app, okay, this app's going to allow members to log in and sign up for the ride. Does it have a limiting factor based on ride leaders? So will it stop at 5 or will it continue on?
When we set up the ride, we can have a cap on the number of riders, total participants, and something about whether that's adjustable based on the number of ride leaders. I haven't had a response yet from my questions to the developers, although I only sent it 2 days ago, I think. That's something that I think if the ride host can adjust, that's one of those numbers that I need to find out whether the ride host can adjust that. But we'll keep it at a 5-person now. Right now that's the limit for gathering outside if rides go ahead. So that doesn't really affect us. But if it goes to 10 and we're saying we really only want 6 if there's 1 ride host, hopefully that's something a ride host can change, because then if we add 2 ride hosts, we can up it to 10. If we add 3 ride hosts, we can up it to, as we see fit. And then the number of riders on a ride, in some circumstances, you might be okay with having 10 people with 1 ride leader, if perhaps if it's a mountain bike ride, where it's just you're not occupying a certain amount of space on the road anyways. Maybe Matt, you completely disagree. You're like 6 is a good limit anyways.
No, realistically, when we're mountain biking, we're not really having those close interactions with people. The nature of the ride spreads people out anyways, and creates that social distance anyways, so that people have room to maneuver. So it's definitely less of a concern mountain biking than on the road.
Yeah, and so I don't want to be completely fixed at 6 people per ride leader. I want to be able to give the hosts a bit of flexibility there in terms of I guess maybe it's a discipline specific thing. We can see how it goes, but we'll keep it at 6 for now, or 5. Yeah, Bruno.
I just want to ask, when we do sign in for the Cycle Club app, are we signing in as like, do I sign in as Bruno or do I sign in as Darkhorse Flyers?
As Bruno.
Okay.
Yeah, because you'll sign in as Bruno, and you'll only be allowed to join the club app, or you sign in as Bruno, and then you join clubs from it.
Awesome.
And when you join the club, you're only going to be invited to the club if you're a member of that club.
Great.
And then you'll be assigned as a ride host based on who sets up the rides.
Cool.
And that's where I don't know completely where the limit of control lies in terms of who can assign a host.
Maybe once we got the app live, we'll do a walkthrough with everyone and sort of know it once we figure it out.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll say one thing. You'll probably get a request, and this happened to me when we first launched it. And for me to sign up, it doesn't mean your information is already signed up in your club. You don't just put your name in and password. You have to kind of build your profile once you're invited to sign up, just as a FYI.
Cool.
And you add your emergency contacts. So if something were to go wrong with someone on a ride, the ride leader can at that point access everyone's emergency contacts.
Awesome.
After the ride, they can't see it anymore. But during the ride, if they need to reach out to anybody, it's there.
These are kind of the key things why we decided this, I think, as a goal, is a good move for the club to try this out. Because instead of having to work through like a spreadsheet or email someone from the board to try to find an emergency contact, it should be right there for you if you need it. That and the member sign up should be a bit smoother.
Cool.
I will still share a spreadsheet though with all ride leaders of emergency contacts. So you can go old school if you want.
Okay. So the COVID waiver, although everybody, I left this here because we don't actually need it this year. So last year that was a big kind of step in the process because everybody signing up as a member of the club had already signed off on this implicit COVID waiver as part of the registration process. But it's still as part of that waiver, that is part of our membership. You can only let people who have signed up for the ride. So they must have registered for the ride. And you must take attendance using the Cycle Club app.
And our OCA insurance does not cover COVID in any way. So if you catch COVID on a ride or spread it on a ride or anything, that's not covered. It's its own world.
The app also has what we could do for each ride is set up a COVID symptom, like COVID questionnaire. We'll have to decide whether we want to use it as a board, but it is something that may be there as well. You have to kind of check off yes to everything or no. Because you say no to everything if you want to go on a ride. Not check off no. You have to answer all the questions honestly. And it'll tell you whether you can go on the ride or not. I have gone through this already. So the ride leader spreadsheet is where the ride leaders first will look to see what rides they may want to lead. The calendar will be used to update both the ride board and the Cycle Club app. And it will be used to assign ride leader credits. The Cycle Club app will be used to communicate with members that are attending the ride, as well as for members to indicate their intention to attend the ride. As part of the mentioned process, check the weather, if necessary, cancel the ride with at minimum an hour before the ride, 2 hours preferred. You don't really want to, you know sometimes whether you need to cancel it the day before. It's going to be, if it's 100% chance that then it's on the next day, because you just want to call it. Some instances, the club will call it based on what the forecast is looking by the club and the board. note deviations. So this can either be through the notes at the end when you click off the ride's been complete, or you can email the club with suggestions for route changes and any other kind of feedback. I mentioned earlier that Cycle Club app has this ability. Let's see if I can change this again. It doesn't occur unless you're in the middle of an event. Do we have an event in our calendar for this particular?
Not
This
for
is where I'm going to switch. That's what the Darkhorse one looks like. Should have come here first. Okay. So when you're in an event, there's also the opportunity. It won't probably show up here because I didn't go there. You could say that the event's been completed. But when you're in the event, there'll also be the opportunity to create an incident report, and it'll ask you all the questions that are generally included on the OCA incident report form. And so it's mainly, who was involved, what happened, what were you doing at the time. It'll automatically add in the date and time. I think you might even be able to automatically take the location, but I'm not positively sure on that. It will, but then it goes into lots of details. And the idea being, put as many details in as you can. A witness name, that could be you, and number, and then details on injuries or on what happened. Then when you submit, complete and submit, it actually just gets emailed to Darkhorse, the board, the registration of the Cycle Club app. And then I think it's on us and to forward on to the OCA.
Yeah. Fill in any missing details and forward it on. It has to go
kind of
to say, yes, they were actually on our ride and that type of thing. Clarification.
But yeah, starting that process and at least looking at it and seeing what information you need to gather would be good to do on the ride. You can complete it at the end of the ride or at the time, depending on how things are.
We'll add one thing, Kate, just on that kind of, if you guys are looking for the calendar, like the traditional calendar view only shows up on when you access it through like a web browser. On the app, it's more of like a linear calendar. So just.
Oh, I thought I saw something else.
It has more of an event tree of just events coming up on the app.
So the weather policy, I said we'd get to this. Our policy is in our risk management. It's on the website. If it's raining at the start of the ride, we don't go. If there's forecast of 70% chance of probability or more, or if lightning or extreme high winds or gusts are forecast for the day, we cancel. So again, that could be within an hour or two of the ride, or earlier if it's looking like it covers the entire duration of the ride. If we're looking at a POP of 50%, we'll say, okay, let's keep a watch on this, and it can go either way. But again, if it's at the beginning of the ride and there's lightning or rain, don't go. If there's lightning sighted, we don't go. Okay. Any more questions on this ride setup process? Or when or how to cancel a ride or start a ride or say I want to leave a ride? Okay. So we're going to get into actually the process of like, what do you do at the beginning of a ride? Some of the key things are identifying yourself, anybody else leading the ride, do a head count. This is part of using the Cycle Club app, obviously doing the checklist, but actually having a number in your head. Okay, there's 4 people on my ride, so that you know when you're looking up, hey, where's number 4? You have that in your mind. get an idea for who's on your ride, what kind of experience they have, physical ability of each participant. Are they in the right? Are they in for what you're planning to do? Is everybody equipped? Do we have the spare parts we need? And then obviously, is everybody COVID have done their COVID check? Okay to be here. Okay. More things to do at the beginning. Talk about the ride briefly. Length, duration, estimated speed, things to watch out for, big potholes on the road, places where they're doing construction, we might have to, go single file. Nothing in normal circumstances would be a difference. Remind them of the physical distancing, and it's a good idea to actually like put your bikes out and say, this is the distance we need to keep during this ride. Talk about where there's reasons why the group might break up, whether it's a steep hill and people just kind of, or a long hill and people will just need to go their own speed, but 100 meters from the top of the hill, there's a stop sign and we'll wait for everybody and regroup there. Break points, if the ride is long enough that you're going to stop and grab a coffee. I don't know if we're allowed. It'll depend on COVID rules. Just where they are and when duration wise into the ride they are, so people can plan accordingly. Group formation, if you're going to do something other than single file, so this is not really for road rides during COVID, but if restrictions change, talking about social pace lines, how you're going to communicate, hand signals that you're expecting, anything that you've noticed on previous rides that haven't been coming about. Just kind of sum it up. And then breaking the group up. So this is more down the line. If we end up having allowed groups of 10 or 20 at the start, we're going to want to make sure we have enough ride leaders, and you're going to say, okay, we're going to split into these 2 groups of 6 or whatever it is, and try to organize it based on ability, if that's the case, or during the ride. We are advocates of leading from the back. So just because you're a ride leader doesn't mean you need to be at the front of the ride. Go at the back, watch what's going on. Get to know if anybody looks like they're out of their comfort zone, anybody's riding erratically, any reason you need to stop the ride and kind of say, okay guys, we need to kind of adjust the way we're doing things, something's not going right. It is good though, if you're not for you to go at the start, but if you know people on your ride, to try to start off the ride with a good steady rider at the front so they can set the pace that you know is going to be right. Especially on the advanced rides, having somebody who will not go off the walls right at the beginning. There's many riders who have a tendency to do that. And that's never a good idea, especially where we start our rides, downtown Toronto. And then no rider left behind. Our policy is 2 riders will drop back and stay with the drop rider for the completion of the ride. There was some talk, and there's some times you'll have a rider that'll come and say, look, I need to go, and that's okay, but you want to say that, like, make it clear that you expect every rider to be telling you if they're kind of going off and they're heading home. If you have a rider who is not able to keep up with the ride, you should try to keep them with the ride for the remainder of that ride, or you can talk to them about how we need to split up and like helping people go back with them and other people can continue on with the road, but make it clear that maybe next time they look at joining a social ride or a beginner or intermediate ride or whatever the case may be. Just checking the level of the ride. COVID concerns, nothing new here. Maintain at least 2 meters at all times. Don't share food, water, equipment. So again, are just kind of the key highlights from the return to the safe sport that OCA puts wash hands, not riding if you're not feeling well. How we ride. So social pace lines are normally how we ride, and maybe the off chance that it comes in the fall, maybe we'll get back to these, but at the time, not really applicable. All the riders should know the route. Use hand gestures wherever possible, but sometimes that's not possible. You can't take the hands off your bars. If it's not safe to take the hands off the bars, and there's lots of reasons why it might not be safe, then that's a case where calling pull or something clear is applicable. Letting people know when there's a car back, if there's something you can do about it, or if there's not, and there's a car back who is coming by anyways. Yelling clear when you need to make a lane change. These are things that are part of our ride guide. So I'm just kind of highlighting some of the key points, but as a ride leader, your role is just to kind of know the safe ways, the ways that we are riding, and share them with the group. And so passing this information on.
Just one thing about the tighten to the right. They say that it's 1 meter from whatever is on the surface of the road. So it could be the curb, but it doesn't have to be the curb if they're consistently sewer grates. You can be 1 meter from that point, not just from the curb.
Oh, okay.
Or pylons.
Or whatever the thing is. There's that one strip of Kingston Road that has those really sunken sewers. And I always have everyone shift over and give it space.
No, you don't want to be weaving in and out.
No.
So when you get out of the city, it's the white line. Are you saying we've got 1 meter from the white line as well?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Well, yes, but no, if the white line isn't safe, if it's all chewed up, you have
Okay. Yeah.
1 meter from where
it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just when we get over onto roads like Durham 30, it can be a little crazy because it's single lane north and south, and some of our friends who like to drive up and down there don't necessarily appreciate or respect cyclists. So
yeah,
that's
so
why
it would have to be single file as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a little bit of space.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if there's a beautiful shoulder beside you, maybe you're tighter to the white line. But.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If you generally we prefer double file on a lot of these single lane roads because it forces a group to be more compact. You still want to be compact left right, which is why we can't advocate for it now during COVID because we would be within that 10-meter distance. But if you can imagine having those same 8 people drawn out in a single line, it makes it harder for a car to pass. And then as long as you're compact to the right, cars should still be able to pass by taking the other lane and still be able to give you a meter of space while passing. We all know that doesn't happen.
I'm aware that they're
also
across the line.
If you're on a road and you're like, this really isn't working, that's something that we need to take back and look at the routes and maybe look for a different route that would be. I know there's some roads like up north of the city that are much better than others in terms of the traffic level. Like your Durham line, I try to stay off, and we have a few routes that go on it, but they're short to get to the next cross street. And when I'm on it, I'll go single file as close to the shoulder as we can. So yes, this is the COVID formations. We really don't recommend this staggered format. It's something that the OCA put up a year ago, but it's generally single file because to maintain that 2 meter distance between yourself side by side double file, you are all over the road and it's not safe anymore.
I did ask because the spacing looks giant to me on this graphic. And I was told that it's 2 meters between the butt and the nose. So the butt ahead of you and your nose.
Butt to nose. Interesting.
Butt to nose.
which I don't think is what they've done here. Or
no, so if it's butt to nose, then this diagram is misleading.
Yeah.
Can I
because last year the OCA said it's wheel to wheel.
Yeah,
2 meters.
and I
And
asked
that-
about that, and I was told it should be butt to nose.
but
I
to
heard
nose.
that yeah.
That makes a huge difference.
It
And
does.
how-
Because that's about a wheel in
Us
between.
kind of need to leave the space because the ebbs and flows that
yeah, no, I understand, but okay, well, I'm glad we've got that clarification. Great.
Can I ask a quick question? It's actually about the previous slide. It's probably not going to be relevant anytime soon, given the COVID restrictions, but when the day comes when things are back to normal, I'm just looking at that double pace line. We, in this club, never rotate counterclockwise.
it always has to be. Ontario Highway Traffic Act says faster vehicles pass on the left. So we always have to pass on the left.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So I think I covered this. It's pretty straightforward. You just add single file and COVID, really. If you need to rotate off the front, you should be rotating to the right and the whole line should pass you on the left. And hopefully you do that when the whole lane is available so that you can have room to do that without, passing somebody within a few inches for a brief second shouldn't matter, but we really should be trying to avoid it if we can. Incidents, accidents. So the first thing, obviously, 911 if you need to. It's pretty straightforward. The concussion policy we talked about briefly before. If anybody looks like they've had any kind of head injury, their ride is over, you're sending them home one way or the other. Like if you're calling their emergency contact or having them contact somebody to give them a ride, or waiting with them until the ride arrives, or if you're sending them in a taxi, or if you're calling for an ambulance, which is never a bad idea if a head injury is suspected. All serious incidents, crashes must be reported to the OCA. So this is if everybody suspects they may need medical care. And that's where the Cycle Club app, you can use a little incident report form to get the information that you're going to need and actually send it on. So this is a summary of some of the key information that you're going to be gathering. So the crashee, or it doesn't have to be a crash, it could be any kind of incident, contact information, date, time, location of the incident, type of activity like conditions, weather, surface, the extra details that are useful. And a witness and contact information of the witness. In terms of first aid, you don't need to have first aid. We had budget to provide ride leaders with first aid training. We've talked about that within the board this year, but I don't think it's off the table. If you're looking for first aid training yourself, reach out to us. But reach out to anybody in the group if anybody has first aid training. And obviously, if you need it.
What's first aid, like a one-day thing or a weekend training?
Yeah.
Doesn't last
Usually,
any. Yeah, okay.
Also, if there are things like if someone was taken out because of a pothole or a sewer grate or a piece of wood, if there's something that you can notice that this is what caused someone to crash, please take photos of it and mark where it is, where the crash happened. And remove things from the road, like take a photo, but then get it off the road so someone else doesn't go down as well.
That's part of the incident report. This is kind of in a weird order, this page. To talk about reporting before we actually talk about dealing with the incident as it is. But, assigning someone who can deal with the first aid sign and taking care of the scene is actually part of first aid training. But making sure there's no other hazards. If somebody's crashed in the middle of the road, get some of your members to kind of watch traffic and try to divert traffic if it's necessary. And if they can get off the road, help them get off the road, but obviously don't move them if they're seriously injured that they can't get off the road. And yeah, and then back to everything I was talking about, administering first aid if you're trained or seeking someone in the group who has first aid, calling 911 as necessary.
And if someone has called if their spouse or whoever is coming pick that person up, you have to still wait with them until their help arrives. You can't just be like, oh, great, you're in good hands. No problem. See you later. Because they might convince themselves that they're okay and continue riding, and then it could go really bad.
It might not be a crash. It could be that somebody's gone, whether it's heat exhaustion or just exhaustion, or other health conditions that have arised. Yeah. Or nothing might actually happen, but you might have a really nasty driver around. You can report that. That's not an OCA report, but it is something that we can report as public citizens, as citizens. And I put the site there because actually I do this often on my commute. Pictures are good, and the description, make and model of the vehicle is also good to know. But it's a pretty simple online form for reporting dangerous drivers. It could be anything from a close pass to harassment. And that type of incidents get the feedback to the board as well. Problem riders. So we're not getting into what problem riders are here, but just simply if there is a problem and somebody is not paying attention to you, listening to you. Bruno, you're pointing yourself, Bruno?
Yeah.
Okay. Mainly, yeah, we're referring to someone who just won't take your take you as an authority figure within the ride. Not necessarily an authority figure, but perhaps not listening to suggestions. We just want to remind you that as a designated ride leader, that you are designated, as long as you're kind of promoting the aspects I listed at the beginning of the ride, which was promoting our club mission, the risk management plan, the concussion policy, then you have authority. And so if somebody is dismissing those, you can ask them not to join the ride or to leave the ride, and then report back. After the ride, so right now, still under COVID, we can't congregate officially. If you say the ride's over, we have no control over it. Follow up with any riders that may have abandoned the ride for whatever reason, whether you sent them home in a taxi or two riders turn back together because they're like, this ride's too long for us. Or is it just 3 that we sent back because they were dropped? Report any incidents through the Cycle app or just directly in an email. Record any notes, complete the ride in the club app, and you can add things there, or again email them. It's really everything in this says the same thing. Ride leader incentives, yay! We need to revamp these a little bit, so that's why this slide is blank, because most of our ride leader incentives involve club membership, but that club membership's already being kind of forwarded in other ways, so we're going to kind of regroup on that. But there will be ride leader incentives on the similar kind of trend that they have in the previous years, which have been starting at 5 rides, leading up to 30 plus, where you get things like club membership, you get club jerseys, club kit.
So this year, we still join through the OCA, do all that, pay the whatever 40 or 90 something dollars, like last year, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, and then the same thing from last year, the same plan. We asked that ride leaders have attended this meeting or gone over the meeting minutes, notes, presentation. Confirm that you have had experience riding in a group. We're thinking at minimum 10 rides, preferably more, usually about a year's worth of riding as a group. Confirmation that you understood the policy and risk management plan already to kind of embody that, and just send a message to us with that information. Anything else? Anything anybody wants to talk about?
I just I foresee a possible situation where somebody, especially with our concussion policy, where somebody that has a fall, it's pretty minor, but they did indeed hit their head, and they may consider it very minor, and we say, well, you hit your head, and therefore you can't ride. And I can foresee a belligerent situation where somebody says that, well, I'm simply riding. We can't wrestle them to the ground and take their bicycle away. I guess the only thing we can do in that kind of situation is say, well, what do you do? You say you can't ride with us because you really can't be part of our group anymore. But on the other hand, do you really want them riding home alone, or do you assign someone to ride home with them? It's a tough one. I don't have a good answer for that.
I think we have to be very clear that our policy states that if you hit your head, your ride is over. Sure, there's going to be people that can argue it, and we just have to make it very clear that we've explained why and everything, so that they can't come back and sue the ride leader or sue the board or whatever. I mean, we do have insurance that covers ride leaders, it covers the board, but it's not something we want to deal with if they have symptoms later.
Can we actually have people agree to it at the beginning of the ride when we take attendance, letting them know, listen, if you're riding right now, if I say you cannot continue riding because of a concussion, be it whatever it is, if you feel it or not, you have to be okay with that. If not, then you can't leave this location with me today.
I think that's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
Rowan's Law, the concussion policy is especially important for anyone 26 and under. So anyone 26 and under, their ride is done, no matter what. If they're not gonna, if everyone has to sit on the side of the road and everyone's ride's done, so be it. But we would be in a ton of trouble if they were to continue on. But so far, we don't have any members under 27, or under 26. So
I think it would be a good idea to sit, like, it might not relieve the issue, but even just sitting there on the side of the road with somebody for a while and say, okay, well, let's just sit for a bit if they're like determined to continue riding. Not that it will change your mind, but that in the hopes that it might change your mind without saying that.
I will
say, okay, let's just sit for a bit.
Symptoms and everything. I'll share the chart that I have of symptoms and everything to watch for.
And I can echo that based on the meeting that we went through, Ange, that the lawyer did say, that we have to follow the protocol. We can't always dictate what the person will or won't do, but that we follow the protocols on our side strictly, so that at least we have that as like, hey, we made all the right recommendations and made all the right moves, and they chose to do otherwise in that extreme scenario. Just make sure you've done all those pieces.
Yeah. And sorry, Mark, to your point, you want to make sure that you've offered them a ride home, as was on the earlier in the presentation, that we can order Uber for them, and we can sit down and tell them that the club is paying for Uber to get them home as well too, which might ease their concern about how do I get home at the end of the day as well too. So, and I know that Uber on some rides will be easier and faster, and some of our rides it may be a little longer. And that's where we might all just need to sort of sit down, and that's where we're having our social break and eat that Cliff Bar or whatever it is you might just happen to have brought with you for the ride.
One other thing to check at the start of the ride is that ensure that everyone has a mask with them, because if there is an incident where you have to get close to other members, or if they need to go into a store to buy water or have a pee break, whatever, they need to mask up. So it's not just ride leaders that need to carry masks, it's everybody.
Also a good idea to just put it on even for the intro talk. Just kind of get in the habit of putting it on whenever you're having a significant break that doesn't involve eating.
Any other questions? Concerns? We're now.
I think the good suggestion I think you made, Ange, is the follow up on the Cycle Club app once it gets kind of more launched. That we, I think that's a great idea to have a subsequent meeting just to kind of like build a comfort level with it.
Yeah. Oh, and if someone does leave your ride for whatever reason, if they're not feeling well, if they think they've got COVID, if they've had an incident, anything, if they've taken an Uber home, follow up with them afterwards. And if you need their email or anything, just reach out to me or, well, email the club address. But it's always good to follow up just to make sure everyone's good. I see there's a question in the chat. Yeah.
I can just ask it. I just want to know if I could keep a copy of the slides.
Yeah, we can make this presentation available, and we're recording this as well, so I'll post it somewhere.
Great.
Oh, great. Thank you,
Yeah,
Kate.
there's several at the end of the slides. I've got just kind of questions you can ask. Things we could talk about, but at the end I have a list of all the kind of the main links there for both the Ride Leader sign up sheet, again, our policies, Ride Leader sign up, the OCA incident report, which kind of covers off what information would go into it. How to report problem drivers. My favorite link.
Cool.
Cool.
Oh, great.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you, Kate.
Yes. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy your night.
All right.
Yeah. Signing off.
Go Leafs,
Thanks.
go.
Thanks all.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.